Our gospel reading this morning comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verses 13 through 21. Page 1619 in your pew Bibles. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool! This very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you folks doing today?
Good.
Well, I'm feeling really good too, because I had a very productive week. It was also a very reflective week. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the time we've spent together and how important you folks have all been as a part of my spiritual journey. This really hit me on Thursday when I was at Costco. Costco, spiritual journey. My cart was full of groceries, and I really wasn't paying attention to how much food I had loaded into the cart. And that's kind of a good thing. You see, in the year or so between when I graduated from seminary and when you folks called me to be your interim pastor, let's just say things were kind of tight. And when I would go through the grocery store, I would keep a running tally of how much groceries I had in the cart. You know, okay, ooh, that looks like 65 or 70 bucks in there. Yeah, I'd better stop. Or maybe I'd even take some things back so I could get it down to like 50 or 60 bucks worth of groceries. I might even go without for something that just wasn't all that important. In those days, my fridge was rarely more than half full. So it's always a really good feeling when I'm in the grocery store and I don't have to think about how much I'm about to spend when I get to the cash register. It could be 80 or 100 bucks, and I'm fine with that. I'm not in a place of scarcity, and that's a good feeling. On Friday, I did a bunch of cooking, and every time I opened the fridge, I got this overwhelming sense of well-being. It was filled. Well, almost every time. Once, when I opened the freezer and saw all of the chicken and Italian sausage that I had bought at Costco and couldn't quite fit into the freezer, I had a moment of panic. What if my next call to ministry wasn't here in Western Pennsylvania? What if I'm called to serve a congregation that's far away? I might have to move in 6 weeks. Did I just buy way too much food? In that moment, I realized that I was standing at the intersection of this event in my life and today's gospel reading. This story is often called the parable of the rich fool. The story begins with a man in a crowd asking Jesus to act as judge in a dispute between the man and his brother. so that he can get a share of his inheritance. Jesus offers a sharp rebuke. Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. To illustrate this point, Jesus offers a parable about a rich man whose lands produced such a great harvest that the man can't store the entire harvest. So he plans to build new barns with even more storage space so that he can hold on to everything. And there I was trying to fit all of that chicken and sausage into my freezer. I felt like the rich fool. Money and wealth are not looked upon kindly in the Gospel of Luke. This is a central theme in Luke and in Jesus' preaching. Throughout the Gospels, where wealth is a problem in the context of the Holy Kingdom, where closeness to God is life, and attachment to things reflects soul-stifling anxiety and fear. Money and wealth are distracting. They can take our focus away from God. The rich man in the parable is focused entirely upon himself. I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grain and all my goods. Think about the language. I, my. The man has shut everyone else out from his life and his thoughts. There is no one else in the story, just the man and his possessions, until God speaks to him. No sooner has he envisioned his future than God speaks to declare what the future actually holds for him. That future is God's judgment. God calls the rich man a fool because the man has focused on his own possessions at the exclusion of God and of his neighbors. The rich fool was isolated by his wealth. Wealth isolates us too. In times of scarcity, our fear can lead us to forget that God will provide for us. In times of plenty, we can be so confident in our own abilities to provide for ourselves that we forget that we are entirely dependent upon God and one another. We believe that we have earned everything on our own and that we deserve it. We forget that we rely upon God. We become like the rich fool in the parable. And it doesn't take all that much wealth, all that much stuff, for us to become foolish. Think of how big our television sets have become. Or just think of the number of TVs in your house. When I was a kid, we had a 19-inch Sylvania. It was the only TV we had. We didn't get a second television until I was in college. We all watched the same program, in the same room, at the same time. I now have a 32-inch flat-screen high-def TV. It seemed huge when I bought it 7 years ago. But now, not so much. But hey, my apartment's small, so it balances out. Of course, as the TVs have gotten bigger and better, we have to build bigger and better rooms for our television sets. Yeah, I am talking of that modern phenomenon known as the man cave. It's not enough that we've got an enormous flat-screen, high-def TV, but the room has to match it. And if a TV is as good as what you can find in the sports bar at the mall, well, then you need all of the amenities in your man cave to match what you can find at the sports bar in the mall. You need a fully stocked bar. You need couches. You need chairs. You keep buying stuff because of the stuff you already have. And it doesn't matter if nobody else in the family wants to watch the game or the movie, because there's a flat screen, high-def TV in every other room too. Even without intending to, we become hoarders. And this isolates us. We become like the rich fool in the parable, and all we say is, I, my. While we're in our bunkers, we go on social media and post our own opinions, or we repost other people's opinions because they already agree with what we think. Then our like-minded friends share our statuses with their like-minded friends. This very means of communicating a message, personal computers and cell phones, shows just how isolated we are from one another. We don't send these messages in conversation. We send them on our own. What's worse, in our isolation, we become self-righteous. We believe that everyone else needs to change. Nobody ever says, I need to turn back to God. I'm going to post this on Facebook. We always say, you need to turn back to God. Or click like and share if you think America needs to turn back to God. It's a great idea in theory. But it's always about what somebody else needs to do, not about what I need to do or what we need to do. And that's the kind of isolation that material possessions can lead us toward. Jesus concludes the parable of the rich fool by saying, so it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God. Jesus offers a way out of the trap of wealth and materialism. Be rich toward God. This doesn't mean you have to sell everything you own and donate all your money to the church. This is not just about giving extravagantly to the church, though please, remember when the offering plate comes around to be generous with your offerings. Jesus tells us the two greatest commandments are to love God and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. To be rich toward God is to turn toward God and to turn away from the possessions that isolate you from God and from your neighbors. If your stuff separates you from God and neighbor, then your stuff may be causing you spiritual problems. As one of my favorite scholars points out, there is nothing inherently wrong with owning things. But notice that for the rich fool, determination of what matters has everything to do with himself, and absolutely nothing to do with anyone else. There's the crux of the issue. Our criterion for possessions, in the end, should not be about what we amass, but what we have that has meaning. And meaning should be determined by the presence of someone else. That criterion may also be applied to wealth. If your wealth is devoted for the glory of God and the care of your neighbors or the care of God's creation, then your wealth may not be causing you spiritual problems. The answer is in the relationships that are facilitated by your possessions and by your wealth. As Christians, we believe in relationships. Scripture is a witness to God's relationship with humanity and love for all of humanity. As individuals and as a community, we are transformed through our relationships with God and Christ. When we come together as a community of believers, we recognize that we are called to share the transformational love of God and Christ with everyone we meet. Ultimately, that love that we have, that comes to us through God. That's the greatest gift we have. When we share that gift with others, we offer an invitation to be transformed. And when we enter into a relationship with others, we accept the possibility of being transformed through that relationship. If the gifts and treasures we have foster that love, if our possessions foster that love, if our wealth is used to foster that love, then we glorify God by sharing God's love. But if we store up our treasures, whether out of fear or greed, then we are not living into the love that God intends for all of us. Let us freely give of ourselves. Let us give of our talents, our time, and our treasure in the same abundance that God has given to us. And may we all be transformed as we share in God's love. Thanks be to God. Amen.